Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our South Yorkshire Bitesize series. My name is Gemma Ridley. I'm the South Yorkshire Innovation Hub Director based here at Health Innovation Yorkshire and Humber. Today's session focuses on our economy work stream, and we cover a presentation from Heather Rice, Director of Research and Innovation, and Sarah Moll, Research and Innovation Manager from Rotherham, Doncaster and South Humber NHS Foundation Trust, and that will be followed by a Q&A session. So the webinars in this series will highlight research and innovation best practice across South Yorkshire and have been running weekly since September, and this is our final one. So for those who've joined us at previous events, thank you, but please do look out for future events as well. Each of our months is focused on a different theme. So we've had cancer, children and young people's, prevention, workforce, and this month has been all about economic participation. And in line with the 10-year health plan, we want to maintain the energy around innovation as a national priority. We all know that innovation drives progress, enhances problem solving and fosters growth, which will forever support our health and care industry. We hope you'll be really inspired by our speakers today, gain some insight into research and innovation delivery, and take away tips to use in your local workplace and/or your system. So to begin with, I'm just going to run through a few house rules and some reminders. We are recording the session today, and this will be uploaded to the South Yorkshire Innovation Hub website, which I'll post in the chat as we get going. Cameras and mics are kept off for all attendees, but if you do have any questions, please do type them into the chat or into the Q&A facility at the top of your screen. So we want to keep these really interactive by using polls throughout the session, and they are anonymous, so please do get involved. So to test that the polls are working and also to test my IT ability, I am going to just launch the first poll, which should pop up on your screen, so feel free to answer that now. So why did you join today? Was it around hearing best practice for inspo, to solve a challenge? Were you asked to attend, or were you just curious? Gosh, we've got a lot of curiosity. That's excellent. And a lot of hearing best practice. Brilliant. So thanks for filling that in. We'll do a few more polls as we go through. So just keep an eye out for those. They are in the chat if you don't get to answer them. So I'm now going to pass you over to our speakers, Heather and Sarah, who will talk to you more about facilitating successful industry working within clinical research. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Gemma. So I'm Heather Rice, Director of R&I at R-, Rotherham, Doncaster and South Humber. And in the first half of this bite-sized presentation, which we're delighted to be able to do this morning, just want to focus on the ethos of our team and talk about how our clinical research facility really came about, how we got it off the ground and how we keep it going, because that is a fundamental plank of how you facilitate successful industry working, which Sarah will talk about in the second half of the presentation. We are called the Grounded Research Team because our ethos is about building research from the ground up. If you could move on a slide, please, Sarah. And what we mean by that is that we want to nurture the power of our communities. That is the key focus of us as a trust, and that includes our approach to research. So we have a diverse and vibrant group of public contributors and patient research ambassadors who work with us as a team, and they've been instrumental certainly in the creation and the development of our research facilities as much as they have in the delivery of our research itself. If you could do the next slide, please. As I said to you, I think the establishment of the Grounded Research Hub, which is effectively a community clinical research facility, is something that is a fundamental if you're going to try and facilitate industry working and successful industry working. For those of you who work in the research world, you know that there is very definitely a kind of chicken and egg concept. You have to have facilities before people will come and look at you. And there's very definitely a need to be able to demonstrate your capability before commercial partners or industry partners really want to come and see what you do. So our facility opened in March 21. I think there was a combination of willingness, ability, and luck potentially in terms of the opening of our clinical research facility. It came about as a request from what was formerly the Clinical Research Network at the time, and was absolutely a collaborative effort between NHS partners and community partners, as well as other partners like local government and academic partners. There was an amount of funding initially given to the trust to be able to develop the building, but the trust absolutely met that halfway by donating the building effectively for dedicated research use. So the building now is up and running. It has dedicated research staff, medics, nurses, pharmacy, a lab, and so on, and we are open for business. Next slide, please, Sarah. This, if you go back a slide, this little slide will hopefully play a short film that will capture the essence of the clinical research facility.
Maybe if you try go back. Oh, there we go. And then go forward.
I think it just turned up there, but it seems to be typical technology. It seems to be. Is it showing on your screen? It's not showing on mine.
Not yet.
It's not. What I can do is I can put the YouTube link in into the chat at the end of the event, Sarah, so people can watch it.
Okay, I'll just move on then, Heather, to this slide.
Thank you very much. As I say, the clinical research facility came about as a combination of our willingness, I think ability, but also a degree of luck. And it was actually stood up initially as a vaccine hub at the very start of the pandemic. Now, we are a mental health and community services trust. So you might reasonably ask what business we have getting involved in the world of vaccine research. But as you know, the globe was getting involved in vaccine research. That was the thing to do. So there was a real opportunity for us to get started in a place where we were almost even partners with those around us who were more experienced in delivering commercial clinical trials. So it came about because of standing up as a vaccine hub, but NIHR were really, really clear that even if we never got a vaccine trial to come to the hub, that this was a facility that could absolutely cater to place-based research and could be something that was a hub for conducting commercial clinical trials from the future. When we opened in the March and we delivered our first trial in the May. So 8 weeks from opening the building to actually delivering a commercial clinical trial was lightning speed. And frankly, we've never really looked back from that point. Next slide, please, Sarah. Of course, when you start off developing commercial clinical trials and they're in a single vein, if you like, they're in a vaccine and we're a mental health and community services trust, you very quickly think about, well, what is the next thing that we need to be thinking about? Where are the other services that we can think about developing partnerships and delivering commercial work from? that is very much in getting it off the ground, very much about, again, collaboration with partners and involving our communities. And a key thing for us to think about, I suppose, was two things. It was we are in a mental health trust. There's very little that's new coming through in mental health, but maybe we need to look at what there is coming through in mental health and really make that our priority. But then also think about how we can foster work in much smaller arenas, such as our community services. And I'm thinking things like, podiatry or the continence team, that kind of thing. So the kind of big ticket issue for mental health coming through is actually in psychedelics. There's a whole pipeline of work with psychedelics. And in terms of our hub, we've looked at a partnership with a clinical research organisation that specialises in this area of work. They're called Clerkenwell. They are based in London. They have 2 sites that they operate as private sites, but they're also a CRO attracting work to the UK. They have a view, which is 5 is the magic number to attract sponsors, big pharma, to come to the UK in terms of delivering their trials. And Sarah's going to get into this in more detail, but effectively we are the 3rd site in Doncaster that has developed a partnership with Clerkenwell. Now, I think what's important to say about this partnership is that this kind of development is how we see the future of the hub and how we will keep work going. I think there are kind of 3 elements to it in terms of success. One is you have to deliver well. You have to deliver well in all sorts of ways. You have to deliver the partnership well. You have to deliver your academic portfolio work well. You have to deliver your commercial work well for people to have the confidence in your capability to be able to take on new work. The second thing I'd say is you have to step out of your comfort zone. We clearly demonstrated that whenever we took on vaccine work as a mental health and community services trust. And I think you need to be able to do that in this arena also. Psychedelics are new. They're not a new drug. They're an old drug that's been repurposed. But this is a new area of work. And for anyone else who works in our types of organisation, you'll know that you can usually count on your one hand the number of people who are research ready when it comes to commercial clinical trials. So there's an awful lot of work to get people research ready, and you have to be able to step out of your comfort zone to do so. And the third thing I would say about the partnership with Clerkenwell is you've got to be entrepreneurial and you've got to think about who else you might work with. If you move on to the next slide, please, Sarah. Business Doncaster have been critical in terms of this partnership being successful and helping attract Clerkenwell to work with us in the north. So I think 3 things: you have to deliver well, step out of your comfort zone, and you have to be entrepreneurial. Those are the takeaways that I would offer you with the creation of a partnership and the themes that would underpin other partnerships to make the delivery of something like our clinical research facility sustainable for the future. I think at that point, I will pass to Sarah, who is going to talk about the Clerkenwell partnership in more detail and how it runs. Sarah.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you for that. So, hi everyone. As mentioned earlier, I'm Sarah Moll. I'm the Research and Innovation Manager at RDash, and I have been working with this partnership for the last 12 months. So I just wanted to highlight really why the partnership matters for us and why it matters for our patients and the communities that we serve in Doncaster. So mental health conditions, they affect 13 to 15% of the working age adults. Deaths related to drugs and alcohol or suicide have risen by 24% since COVID-19. And our patients in the surrounding area, they've got limited access to effective treatments. So these, although psychedelics have been around before, we're giving patients in the surrounding area the opportunity to participate in these trials. So we're moving the trials from down south, from London, up north, to give the population the chance to get involved. Almost 23% of the total burden of disease in the UK, you can attribute that to mental health. So the partnership between ourselves and Clerkenwell Health, it also matters because it attracts investment into the local community. So for example, the life sciences industry is worth £94 billion. And if we become more and more involved in research, and as Heather said, we do deliver to time, target and budget, then we can have a bigger slice of that cake and we can reinvest that into our services. So it's a real opportunity for us to showcase the surrounding area. It also helps us to boost the local economy, so we have local jobs. Currently, we have 2 of our NHS nurses. They're going to be working in Clerkenwell Health. They're going to take on facilitator roles. Clerkenwell Health themselves have also employed local people. So they've employed research nurses, they've employed psychotherapists, a pharmacist, and there's also the kind of indirect impact for the local economy. So for example, accommodation, transport, catering, it can benefit from this partnership and this CRO coming up north to be based with ourselves at Grounded Research. Hopefully, eventually, these studies will help us to reduce our NHS costs. So, for example, if these treatments are effective, we will be able to perhaps have less impact on our crisis teams. Also, inpatient stays will be reduced because of that. They're innovative treatments, so they'll enhance our innovation programme. We're already seeing that it's going to improve our workforce skills. So for example, as I said, 2 of the NHS nurses are working in Clerkenwell and they're developing facilitator roles. So they're enhancing, they're upskilling themselves. We're in contact, we're in discussions with Clerkenwell about rater scales training as well. So this will hopefully help us to retain staff in Doncaster and for it to be a place where people want to come and work in research. It'll also help us generate revenue streams. So if you do deliver well for commercial studies, they tend to come back. So it's repeat business for us and we can reinvest that back into the NHS and the services that we offer to patients. So these treatments, it'll be timely access for patients in the communities that we serve, early access. Sometimes these patients, they've explored lots of other avenues and treatment has failed for them. For example, treatment-resistant depression. So this would give those patients the opportunity to try something else to help them. It'll help us expand our commercial clinical trials, and we want the UK to be a go-to place for psychedelic studies, but we also want Doncaster to be the go-to place as well. So it's going to be mutually beneficial for the NHS, for industry and for Business Doncaster. It's the first of its kind that you've got a clinical research organisation based on NHS premises and you're running research studies jointly. So it's a fantastic programme to be involved with. But there's been a huge amount of work that's gone on for this partnership. I came into post in November 2024 and discussions had already taken place between Ardash and Clerkenwell Health. But from October to December, we had to get the necessary paperwork in place. So there was discussions around a non-disclosure agreement, a heads of terms document to be signed off, to be very clear about the roles and responsibilities and the expectations. Also, because Clerkenwell Health wanted to run psychedelic studies in Bungalow 1, they had to apply for a home office licence because the therapeutic substances that are used are actually classed as Schedule 1 controlled drugs. So you have to have a home office licence before you can use them. So they were applying for the licence, and as part of that, they sent up a company called Sabrosa that was a risk management company that came up to Doncaster and looked at Bungalow 1 and our Bungalow 2 as well well-grounded research, and they wanted to give us advice around how we could improve our security for those buildings. If we were going to store and administer those types of drugs, what did we need to do to improve the security for those? And so we got advice around perimeter fencing, lighting, signage, and we also got advice around where the drug was actually going to be stored, reinforcing the pharmacy door. So they spent quite a bit of time with us. They had drones, so they were looking at the bungalows from an aerial point of view as well. And then they produced a report and sent that to Clerkenwell, making recommendations about how the security could be improved. And this all informed Clerkenwell's application for a Home Office licence. We also had a visit from the two Home Officers, came to Doncaster to discuss what the security arrangements would be, and they needed to assure themselves that we would have the appropriate governance, the appropriate security arrangements in place before they could issue a licence. And I'm glad to say that they were happy with that, and they did issue a Home Office licence. We couldn't run the studies without it, so it was critical for the success of the partnership. We had a really successful official launch on the 12th of September 2025, announcing the partnership. So we had representatives from academia, the NHS and industry. We had the CEO from Doncaster. We had the CEO from Clerkenwell. So lots of key individuals were there. It was a really successful day. The format of that day was actually, we had an expert panel of people who discussed the partnership, the challenges, the opportunities, the science around the studies. So really well attended, and we got really good feedback from that. There's some photos coming up that'll just give you a little bit more of a feel about the launch. But that was the vision for us. That's what we wanted to do. We needed to now operationalise that, and a huge amount of work again has gone into that. We set up a number of work streams to look at the partnership in more detail. So for example, we set up a workforce work stream with representatives from the NHS and also Clerkenwell. We worked with our HR colleagues to get advice around if NHS staff were going to go into Clerkenwell, which is a private company, would we need changes to their contracts? Where would we be from an NHS indemnity point of view? We had to seek advice around that. Which SOPs would they work to? So there was a lot of topics that I didn't envisage, but they were highlighted, and we had to work with the appropriate individuals to resolve those. Our communications team were pivotal in giving out the right message, and our labs and our pharmacy wanted to make sure that they were in a position to operationalise these research studies when they started. So the governance, these work streams were overseen by a steering committee, and that's got a representative from Clerkenwell, the CEO, and our CMO and Heather and myself, and we pull people in as we need to. So the steering committee is overseeing the governance, the strategy. Is this partnership aligning with NHS priorities, financial implications for us as a trust, financial implications for Clerkenwell as well? So that's basically the structure to make sure the partnership is successful. And this just gives you a couple of photos of the launch itself. You can see in the bottom right hand corner we had a ribbon cutting ceremony, and the lady that's cutting the ribbon is Akila Mohammed. She's the Deputy Lieutenant for South Yorkshire, and she's also one of our patient research ambassadors. So she's been key to a huge amount of success within grounded research. And the two chief executives are holding the ribbon there. Toby Lewis, nearest the camera, is the Ardash chief exec, and Tom McDonald there on the other side. So it was a really successful day, and you can see in the top corner the panel discussing various aspects of this study. So if I just move on to the next slide, I just wanted to show you the actual bungalow one itself. So this is Clerkenwell Health's bungalow. and it's fitted out to deliver psychedelic studies. So there's quite a strict criteria for the environment for patients when they come to be dosed. There has to be certain lighting, there has to be certain soft furnishings, bedding, comfortable bedding. The participants can listen to music, but that does have to be a certain type of music. So it's all about a calming atmosphere as well. And you can just see in the left-hand corner there, there's a facilitator sitting with the patient. So this is what 2 of our nurses have been trained to do. And so they just sit with the patient when the patient is going through a dosing session to support the patient minimally, but to support the patient through that as well. And again, you can see bungalow 1, it's got a lovely sitting room there. They had somebody came up from London, and an interior designer, to give advice about how it could be really relaxing for the patient and their relatives as well. So it's absolutely a lovely building for this research to take place. So basically, in conclusion then, the partnership and the whole process was really dynamic, and it was fast paced. We ourselves had to innovate quickly, we had to react quickly, challenges came up that we hadn't foreseen that we had to deal with. But we're now 12 months down the line, and I can't quite believe that we are where we are, that we're now going to open 2 psychedelic studies in bungalow 1, and they're going to be supported by our labs and by our staff in grounded research. And ultimately, we're going to be able to offer these studies to the patients and the communities of Doncaster, which can only be of benefit to them as well. So I'll finish there, and thank you very much for listening to us.
Brilliant, thanks, Sarah. I mean, I've been to the facility in Doncaster, and it's amazing, but I learned something new there. So just while you're thinking of any questions, and we've got a couple in the chat already, I'm going to launch a couple of polls just so we can gather some insights into today's session. So I'll just launch the first one. So did you learn something new today? Absolutely, I did. So wonderful. Everybody did. Fantastic. And just thinking about how this relates to you and your work. Was this helpful to you? Me, wonderful. And then does this link into your current work priorities as well? Okay, fantastic. Right, so we'll move into the Q&A session now, Sarah and Heather. So there's a couple in the chat. So Natalie just asked as you were going through, could you tell me where the other sites in Doncaster are and in South Yorkshire that have developed the relationship with Clerkenwell?
That we're the only one, Gemma. So there are, as I say, 2 Clerkenwell only sites in London, and we're the 3rd site outside of London. So to my knowledge, there aren't any other partnerships in the vicinity. They're seeking to develop partnerships elsewhere in the country, or indeed in some of the devolved nations, but nowhere else locally.
Okay, brilliant. So I just jotted down a few thoughts, because obviously this is a huge amount of work and it's a massive asset for us within South Yorkshire. I think for me, what's your vision for the future with this partnership? What does it look like in 10 years' time?
Well, I think everything in clinical research, there's quite a long timeline, isn't there? So we would expect to be conducting these trials for years to come, because that's how the pipelines run. I would expect along the way, to touch back on some of the things that Sarah was pulling out, we will have been able to develop our own capacity and capability significantly as a consequence of this partnership. So, for example, our nurses who are able to come in and be trained in rating scales that we don't routinely use in the NHS is something that then will stand them in good stead for trials in the future. And that's a really big ticket item for the NHS and for life sciences right up and down the country, actually. We don't routinely use these scales. Lots of us have tried to get the right training, but where it seems to fall down, in my opinion, is then in application. So there aren't enough of the trials coming through to be able to keep those facilitators and those raters, etc., up to date. So I would hope that this partnership would be able to move the world on when it comes to that very problem, so that we have the opportunity for the training and in a quite a safe way. You know, we would be able to go in and send in, you know, nurses, sub-Is, you know, etc., who can train up and earn their stripes in arenas that they wouldn't normally be able to do. They haven't done it before, but there are experienced PIs and experienced facilitators there that we can learn from. In turn, Clerkenwell benefit from the fact that they've partnered with an NHS trust. They benefit from a reputation for delivery. They benefit from access to communities and access to patient groups. And more broadly, you know, that series of partners that we work with from, you know, other acute trusts, primary care colleagues, you know, social care colleagues, and so forth, to be able to deliver successful trials. So it must enhance, and they've said that enhances their capability of drawing those trials to the NHS. I think some of those skills then are broader than just the psychedelic work, of which that's a big area anyway. So we would hope that this is a really good platform to show how we can move onwards and upwards, and perhaps then attract other clinical research organisations to do something similar.
Absolutely. I think that was absolutely clear when Sarah was talking about that workforce impact and the doors that it's opened for your staff to have experiences and learning opportunities with other organisations. And as Sarah was going through your timeline, I thought, gosh, I bet you didn't know half of the stuff around Home Office licenses and all the risks and flying drones above buildings, etc.
Really didn't. I
yeah.
certainly didn't. I learned so much about, you know, yeah, as you say, drones going over buildings and what was required, and signage. The signage couldn't be too much, it couldn't be too little. It was a real eye-opener for me, certainly.
Yeah, I can imagine. So we've got a bit of a triple header primary care question from Natalie. So what's the relationship between primary care to recruit patients? Are you finding those patients from primary care, and have you had any barriers to that recruitment from primary care?
I don't know if Sarah wants to answer the recruitment conversation, but yes, we have a relationship absolutely with primary care. If you want to come to that, Sarah, and then I can talk about the second bit as to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do, Natalie, we work very closely actually with Woodstock Bower, which obviously is a GP practice, and other GP practices in the area as well. And Clerkenwell themselves do link in with GP practices and to offer financial benefit for referring patients that may be interested and be part of these studies. But we as well will be linking with primary care to again offer the studies to see if any of their patient population may be interested in that as well. One of our clinical support officers, he accesses System 1, and some of our primary care colleagues have given us access to their System 1. It's gone through all the information governance and approval channels to do that, but again we can be looking at maybe inclusion exclusion criteria for potential patients that might be in their area that may be interested in the study. And the recruitment strategy would be, for example, that the GP practice would text the patient and just say, we've got a link to these studies, are you interested? And if the patient is interested, then they click on a link to Clerkenwell, and then so it's driven by the patient very much once we've flagged the opportunity. So there's no second calling or anything, or no pressures on the patients. They're just given information about the actual study and where to link into if they need to.
Should I come on, Gemma, to the question about financial benefits? Would
Yeah,
that be
go for
helpful?
it. So just for the audience, I'll make sure I ask that if people are just listening on the audio. So in terms of the financial benefits, can you give us some idea about what that looks like, and are you looking to reinvest this in your research infrastructure?
So I think there's probably three areas in terms of financial benefit to think about. So Clerkenwell have leased a building from the trust. So that's a direct kind of estate exchange that provides some longevity and usefulness about a building, which has now been modified and improved indeed with the investment that Clerkenwell have brought. So that's a significant financial benefit for the trust over a decade. The second area clearly is then the purchase of services, whether you're supplying labs or staff or whatever. There is the ability then to use commercial clinical research frameworks, the ICT and so on, to conduct that. And there's clearly a financial exchange there. And then I think longer term, I think there's probably, and we are early doors in this relationship and we haven't experienced this yet, but Clerkenwell are clearly operating a private site next door to us. But if they were, for example, capped, well, you can only recruit 5 patients, 10 patients, whatever, and very quickly, and we've all been here with studies that then need quickly to recruit some more patients and so on. Could we open as an NHS site immediately next door? And I appreciate there'll be all sorts of governance issues about doing that quickly, but it's possible. It's possible that we might then also open as a site, not just as a partner in collaboration with Clerkenwell. So those are kind of the three areas where I see there being some financial benefits, and absolutely that would be developed would be invested back into the research infrastructure, but actually more broadly, an investment into a trust building that isn't a research building is a broader investment to the trust, but a trust that's able to attract that investment is hopefully, and a research team who's good at doing that and attracting that investment in bolsters the research team's credibility for within the trust, doesn't it, going forward? I think Natalie, there's broader financial benefits, aren't there, to the system, which Sarah alluded to in terms of the creation of jobs and the health is wealth piece, and the fact that local contractors were the people who came in and did the building work to the building, or there's something about the spin-offs to this that's good for the local economy too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Heather. I'm just aware of time and we try to wrap these up by 22. So I'm just going to flash up another couple of polls and then we'll bring the session to an end. Is this going to work? I think I might have got your IT bug, Sarah. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. Oh no, there we go. So this is a word cloud. So what will you do with the information that you've heard today? If you just have any reflections, can you pop those in there for me? And then finally, like I said at the beginning, this is part of a larger series of events that we do called Innovation Bitesize. So would you be interested in attending an event of this type in the future? Wonderful. This gives us a great business case to be able to take them forward. Thank you. There's a couple of more comments in the chat from Natalie. Heather and Sarah, you might want to pick those up afterwards, and an email address in there from Natalie, so that might be worth a conversation. So that just leaves me to thank you for everybody attending today. I know your time is massively precious, as is the time of our presenters, so a huge thank you to those as well. Like I said, these will be uploaded to the South Yorkshire Innovation Hub website. Please share these with your colleagues and do watch them back if you need any more information. And yeah, so hopefully we'll launch some more of these series, but just keep a lookout for them in the future. So final thanks to our presenters and for you for joining today. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.